We would like to welcome everyone to OWASP Riyadh. Thank you so much for attending. So we are hosting Mr. Asher Jawed. Click next. عارف.
Yeah, let's wait for some time. It's 2-3 minutes. Let's see.
See.
Imran, I cannot hear you. Atif? Hello?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yeah, now I can hear you. Yes.
Yeah, just a second. We are just about to start in a second.
Okay. Okay.
So, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon, everyone. We are about to begin our session, and we have with us Ashar Javed, and he will take us to the road towards the 365 bugs in Microsoft Office 365. Ashar Javed is a security engineer with Hyundai, and he has also completed his PhD from Germany. And he is a big name, especially when it comes to cross-site scripting. And he has also been ranked by Microsoft at #1 globally in the year 2018 for his numerous bugs submission. So without wasting much time, I will hand over to Ashar, and he will take us through his journey of finding bugs in Microsoft products. So I'm handing over to you, Ashar.
Okay.
Please start.
So First of all, good afternoon to everyone who is listening and watching this webcast. And before I will start, first of all, I would like to thank the organizer for having me, and thanks you guys for having a time for this session. So without wasting any time, I think I should start sharing my screen.
Yes.
Okay. And then we are good to go. Now, I hope attendees can see my screen, the road towards 365. Yes. Okay. So as the talk title suggests, the road towards 365 bugs in Microsoft Office 365. So far, when I last time checked how many bugs I reported to Microsoft and how many got validated from Microsoft, it's like 320, 325 at the moment. Like I am about to done like 365 bugs. And these are all the valid bugs. And I would say 90% of them were awarded also. First, as Atif already introduced me, I'm a doctor engineer. I did my doctorate from Germany, and I'm working for Hyundai AutoEver Europe. Hyundai AutoEver is a subsidiary of Hyundai Motor Group, and we will provide IT services to Hyundai and Kia Motors in Europe. I had a chance to speak at different events like Black Hat Europe, Hack in the Box, WAP Spain, DeepSec, and now here, OWASP Riyadh. Also, many different security conferences I spoke. So because of all these valid bug submissions that I did to Microsoft, Microsoft ranked me as a #1 researcher in 2018. And in 2019 and in 2020, they ranked me as a #4 most valuable security researcher. They changed the name from top 100 to most valuable security researcher. As Atif said that I did bug hunting, and I try to find bugs here and there. First, in this slide, the link is there, and we will also share with the help of organizers later. And this talk, in fact, this talk is already online. You can see it, a tour of Office 365 Azure SharePoint through the eyes of a bug hunter. In this talk that I did at DeepSec like 1 or 2 years ago, I shared my general experiences of participating in any bug bounty program, in particular, because in the last 3-4 years, I am only focusing on Microsoft bug bounty programs. I am not participating in any other program. Like I solely dedicated all my energies, all my focus on this Microsoft program. So I share my experiences. Like, for example, if you plan to start bug hunting in Microsoft, what are the problems that you will experience? What are the good side? What are the bad side? Like, so these all I try to share in these slides. So they are available online. You can just type a tour of Office 365 and you can see it. Let's move to the today's topic. Of course, we in the next 30-40 minutes, I cannot share all these 365 bugs, but as Atif said, I love cross-site scripting, so I will share some. You would say once you will see these findings, you will say how simple they are. But there is a saying: bug always looks simple once you saw it. But at a first place, in order to reach there, it's not an easy task. So Office 365, this is how it looks like. Once you set up your environment, office.com, or in a technical term, I would say once you set up your own tenant, it's an own testing tenant, and which you can legally test as per Microsoft rules. Basically, in your tenant, you're not hurting anyone. You're not attacking third party. You can create your own accounts, 1, 2, 3, like some with the admin privileges, some having less privileges, and then you start testing. Once you have set up everything, this is how office.com looks like. Like you can see Outlook, you can see OneDrive, you can see Dynamic 365, you can see video, you can see Power Apps, you can see, and everything is a whole new world. If you go to Dynamic 365, Microsoft, in fact, offer a separate program that is only dedicated to Dynamics 365. And if from the admin, you go to Azure, they have a separate bug bounty program. Outlook has their own identity management bug bounty program. But everything starts from here, Office 365. Finding a bug, I would say, is still a challenging task. I have some reasons to say this thing. Number one, Microsoft enjoy a manpower of many in-house security professionals. According to this blog post by the Microsoft, they have like 3,500 cybersecurity experts working all day for Microsoft. I'm not saying that these guys all the time are looking at Office 365, but I assume most of them are also dedicated for Office 365, and they have also like red team, blue team, purple team. So all these guys are their day job is to find bugs in Microsoft properties. Like if I compare, like I also work for a top automaker, but we have a security team here in Europe that is only consists of like 3 to 4 persons. They have in Microsoft, if you compare 4% to 3,500, you can see a difference. The second thing, Office 365, Microsoft calls it's a words productivity cloud. And as per Microsoft, they say security is built into the heart of Office 365. And Microsoft says they follow a development process called Microsoft Security Development Lifecycle. Like throughout the stages of development of any software, the security is an integral part as far as Office 365 is concerned. Another interesting thing, every year, Office 365 is audited by a third party called NCC Group. It's a well-known pen testing group based in UK, I think. And every year, I read the reports. They are also available on some dedicated links. I read the reports of NCC findings. So they have the manpower. They are following the security development life cycles. Along with their own teams, third parties also auditing every year Office 365. And last but not the least, they have a public bug bounty program. Like no one is stopping you to participate in that program. It's not a private program. Anyone can participate it from his own couch. Okay, let's start. I will show you some. Once you will see it, you will say, wow, this is very simple. I should find it at first place. How can these third-party companies, how can even Microsoft security professionals miss these simple things? But as I told you before, once you saw the bug, it always looks simple. But in order to find it at the first place in the world, it's not that simple. Okay, first is like a context. I try to share how I approach the problem, how I try to find the bug. So let's say there is a site called example.com. You enter a search query like XSS. It goes to the server and it renders back on the page. And once you look at the view source of the page, you found out that this XSS that you throw, it goes to the server and it comes back in different context. Here you see around with the XSS, there are like a span tag closed like an HTML context. Here you see it's reflected as a part of some attribute called value. Here you see it's returned back as a part of a variable which is inside a script block. Here you see it's written as a part of like a URL, or maybe in some cases like in style also. But what is context? Context is, you can say in simple word, it's like an environment where like a user supplied input or input from any application by the end of day starts living. Okay. Out of all this context, because in the next like 1.5 months, I have 3 to 4 online talks planned. And my plan is that I will gradually share different bugs that belongs to different context during these sessions. And some of the bugs that are not related to cross-site scripting, I will share next month in Hack in the Box Cyber Week. My talk got accepted over there, I think in November, by the end of November. So and I will try to share all the slides. So out of these 365 bugs, I assume that you can easily see 70, 80 bugs during these in these slides that I'm going to share. Okay, this URL context. For example, I came across this page where they're asking me to provide an organizational privacy statement. And it is written, please enter a privacy statement URL. This should be a valid URL. You enter a URL, let's call it like a google.com with https://. And once you look at the code, you see it reflects back whatever you entered here. It reflects back as a part of href attribute, which is like a URL context here. Okay, now whenever I see this type of case, whenever I personally came across, or how I was successful in Office 365 by finding so many bugs, how I approach this issue. For example, the next question is how to attack it. Okay, I think most of you already have an idea how to attack URL context. But the next question is that, is there a particular methodology that you are following it, or you are just attacking it in a random manner? I try to follow a methodology that I developed, but I would say develop your own methodology. For example, the normal attack methodology should revolve around JavaScript, data URI. I would say it's not useful nowadays because it's tied to null origin nowadays. And VB script, okay, no one is care about IE and no one is going to pay you bounty if you found a VB script URI based execution in some Office 365 apps. So if I boil down, we end up in like a JavaScript URI. This is the most important thing. But why do we really need to test all these? Like when you should test, or when you should not test. This is important. When a validation check that a URL should start from HTTP or HTTPS is missing. Okay, if there is a check that the URL starts from HTTP or HTTPS, then no matter you throw 100 or thousands of payloads, because there is a validation check that the HTTP URL should start. So it means that you are wasting your time. The first thing you should identify how the app is responding to your input in that case. This is like a sort of very simple flow chart. I would say just cross the last two parts like data URI and VB script URI, because they are not nowadays no more useful. Like if I see a URL context, first thing that I always try is to simple throw an unobfuscated JavaScript URI. Then if I see some sort of filtering is there, it tries to remove some characters or it try to do something strange, then I try to do like with URI and with URL encoding. Then I go for HTML5 or hex or decimal encoding. Like I try different variations then. This is how I try to proceed. As I said earlier, I'm not saying that this is like 100% correct methodology. I'm saying that with this methodology, I am successful, or I was successful as of now. But you can make your own style, or you can switch the places. For example, you wanted to run some obfuscated payloads at first place, go ahead. No one is stopping you. But I always try to follow this pattern. Okay, let's see this small fiddle. Can you see it? Somebody will confirm me. Can you see this fiddle?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, good. So in this case, I have some JavaScript URI payloads. Some look very simple. For example, this is like a JavaScript :alert one, a very simple click me. If I click here, you will see alert one. This is like a template string. Instead of the parentheses, I use a grave accent or backtick here. If I click here, you will see 2. And when you see, it depends on your observation. If you see that app there is a validation check missing, that the URL should start with HTTP or HTTPS, you can go for obfuscation. For example, sometime I found out that and on the server side, they have a filter that is checking a keyword JavaScript. Okay, then you can easily defeat it. How? For example, here you see, I use HTML5 encoding : I use here and tab and new line in between the word JavaScript. Instead of having, sometimes there's a check on alert, prompt, and confirm, which are the very simple proof of concept for cross-site scripting. You can even obfuscate them. Like here is a Unicode encoded form, along with, you can see here, there's a URL encoded parenthesis. It's a completely URL encoded payload here. Sometimes in my personal experience, I realized that then there is a validation check that the URL should have an HTTP or HTTPS, but they are not checking that the URL should start from it. It depends upon the regular expression they are using. So of course, this trick simply often works in some cases, like JavaScript colon, then you come up with a valid URL, and as part of some parameter, with the help of new line URL encoded, you try to execute your code, and all these click me, everything works here. So they all works. Whichever you click, they are like a sort of valid JavaScript payloads. For example, if you ask me how I apply, I always start from the first one. It's not like that I always start from this one, or from this one, or from this one. Like you can start in a sequential manner, or you can automate this if you're good in doing that. Okay, let's, some of you might be thinking that about this obfuscation, how to do that. It's nothing new in that. I remember when I started PhD in 2012, I wrote this paste where I come up with some 50 cross-site scripting vector. This I pasted on in 2012. Now we are like November 2020 is coming, like an 8-year-old, and in all the cheat sheets around there about XSS, you can find these payloads. You can also see it where there are different type of obfuscations. I use it over there just for practice. You can use it. Okay, let's now in this part of presentation, let's see some of the bugs that are only related to URI context, URL context. That I show you the methodology, I show you how I try to approach the problem, and now I show you some real bugs, and all these bugs were avoided by the Microsoft. For example, this is the first one. This is a site-wide XSS. I'm saying site-wide in a help feature of Dynamic 365. How I found it? Dynamics provide me a feature where I can change settings. Maybe I should improve the quality, should be like 720. Let's reload it again. Now, Dynamics allow me to enter a customized help URL. And you see what I entered here, like a JavaScript URI. By default, this feature is like not enabled. I enabled it and I entered a valid URL. And this makes the whole Dynamics vulnerable wherever the help feature is there. For example, in the video, you can see it. Anywhere you see help, because of this JavaScript URI, they are vulnerable. How simple is that? Okay, let's see another bug. This one was in support.microsoft.com, because on support.microsoft, it's like an app store. You can download different apps developed by third party for your Office 365. And one page I found out where you can report a violation, like this app is violating something. And this page was asked, has a get parameter. It's called, I think, the developer URL, where you can visit the website of the developer who is offering that app. And simply changing the normal URL to JavaScript URI, this results in an XSS. Okay, let's see one more. This XSS is in the admin center of Office 365. Let's see this video. This is Office 365 admin center, where you can control whole Office 365. In the Microsoft search feature here, there's a section called question and answer. And this section offers me a Wysiwyg editor. What you see is what you get. And this Wysiwyg editor has a feature insert link. It's a markdown. Normally it should be only HTTP or HTTPS, but they allow me to change the HTTPS URI to a simple JavaScript URI. And this is not like only a self access. You can publish it and then you can later come back to the page and you can see the effect is permanent. The effect is there still. So now you can see it. I come back again. And here the effect is all the time there. It's like a JavaScript URI is working over there. So keep in mind, all these cases were reviewed by Microsoft and awarded by Microsoft and now fixed. That's why I'm sharing this to you now. Another XSS is in the SharePoint main search bar. The main search bar of SharePoint. SharePoint is used by millions of companies around the world. How I find it, you can see in this video demo. I try to improve the quality. For example, they have a feature called bookmark, and it has this field called URL where I enter the URL. And when you go to, you will see in the video next, when you will go to the SharePoint and you do a search for a particular bookmark, you, at that time, the SharePoint reflects back the URL or a JavaScript URI. You see it now. I refresh the SharePoint just to see the effect is there. Now I only search for some keyword or some popular document, and the first part of the search result is the bookmark that you entered over there. So the next thing, all these findings that I am showing you revolves around JavaScript URI. In the next upcoming talk, I think in a week time, I will show you the bugs that belong to a different context and that has a complete different set of payloads. I will try not to repeat these bugs over there. This is another JavaScript URI based XSS in SharePoint. So it's like a team site. How to make this team site, how to set up SharePoint, it's a complete different ball game. Like I personally offer like a 2 days full-time training about setting up all the tenants, setting up all the features, or how you can see all these features before the world will see it. So it's a complete separate ball game, because I'm the first one who is finding these bugs, even though the payload looks very simple, like a JavaScript URI, because the people simply don't dig deep inside the application. They only expose, or they only see that like the front of the application without digging deep. Once you go inside the application, the bugs are there. This is like a simple post parameter that I change from the URL to JavaScript URI. And one thing you are realizing now that whenever I submit a bug to Microsoft, I always try to make a video proof of concept. This helps them on their side of the story. They have their engineers sitting over there. In that way, they can easily see it. They can easily reproduce it. So I would also say you, whenever you start participating in Microsoft, please try to make a video POC. This will, this basically you are helping them. The next thing, again, another bug in SharePoint, another bug in JavaScript, thanks to the JavaScript URI. Now you may be thinking, how simple is that? Like a JavaScript URI payload is working in SharePoint main search bar. JavaScript URI payload is working on a Dynamics 365 every page. But this is how you should also approach the problem. Whenever you see a URL, try to attack in a particular way. Try to test all these things. So these are the web parts of the SharePoint. Like web parts means like you can add these features on your SharePoint page. This is SharePoint Online. If you work for some organization, you definitely have a SharePoint on-premise version, like where SharePoint is installed locally. But I test it on always in an online version. It's easy to test it. Again, I changed the form design URL to a JavaScript URI. And in Office 365, everything is shareable. You can share across members of different organizations. Everything offers a share button. You can share it. So the effect is persistent. The effect is there. The other parties can also see it. It depends on the privileges. You can assign more privileges to them. So here you go. This is another SharePoint bug. This is another bug in SharePoint, JavaScript URI. They have a feed. And in my case, I try to follow some marketing people from SharePoint team. As soon as the new feature come, these marketing guys are good enough to tweet about the feature, and I test it at first place, I think within a day or two. Like these features come to the normal user maybe 2 months or 3 months after, but I found these bugs as soon as they launched on a test environment. So one trick that I used, I follow the like a director of SharePoint marketing. As soon as they announce a new feature, this guy definitely tweet about that, and this allow me to test. Further tricks that I used, I have their subscription of their message center, where they message and email about every new feature that is in the pipeline or that is about to release or that has been just released. So you can use these tricks also, so that you will be the first one to test these features. So it's a call to action button in SharePoint countdown counter web part, and this is vulnerable to JavaScript URI. The next bug I am going to show you, it's in the account.windowsazure.com. They have a feature, like they show me, because I'm based in Europe, they show me like a pop-up dialog when I was browsing this URL. And in the code, if you see like global.location.href, once you agree, this brings you to some Microsoft XYZ domain. But I changed the get parameter return URL to JavaScript URI payload, and it results in an XSS. So this is another XSS in Dynamics, another one having JavaScript URI. So the point I wanted to say, you don't need a variety of payloads. With these simple payloads, you can find bugs. Like I'm showing you only a JavaScript URI based valid and awarded accesses in Microsoft Office 365. So this is a bug in Dynamics 365 where they allow me to create a new SharePoint site, and as there's in the form field there is a section called absolute URL, because they have like a client side filter. First, always enter a valid URL, and with the help of burp proxy or any other proxy, just change it to JavaScript URI. This is an API call, and simply change this absolute URL to some JavaScript URI based payload. You can use a payload of your own choice. And the beauty of Office 365 is that everything is shareable. You can share because it's a single sign-on. You can you can enjoy, you can have a luxury of all the Office 365 services. So everything is shareable. So you can easily create a perfect attack scenario for them. But in my personal experience, okay, if you wanted to make one, make it. But if your report is good enough that Microsoft is able to reproduce it, they are good enough in awarding you. So you can make an attack scenario also. But in my case, or in my personal experience, what I used to do, I created one test account for Microsoft also, so that they can, their engineer, instead of reproducing it on their own tenant, or instead he has to reproduce his own setup, I did all the job for them. Like I have a setup, I created one test account for them, and I used to share the account with them. Hey, you can reproduce this bug. This is the video on this tenant with this username. I think so far this practice is very successful. So another bug in Dynamic 365, all competitors, thanks to JavaScript URI. Now you will be thinking, why you guys miss this simple bug? So as I told you before, bug always looks simple once you saw it, or once somebody already found it, or you are reading the write-up. Because I am pretty sure, or I don't want to name some researchers. I got messages on daily basis. People were unable to make the setups. People fail in creating the setups. People fail in having these Office 365, SharePoint, Dynamic 365 working for you. And once these things starts working for you, because I spent like years now, like 4 years, I am only focusing on the other program. There is a field called website. The first thing I enter, like a valid URL just to bypass their local client side filter. And I always use burp suite in my personal case, but you can use any proxy. Here you see a post parameter website URL. Simply change it to any JavaScript URI based payload. In fact, this Dynamics allows you to share the URL by email, by link, or whatever you wish for. Like, this is good. Microsoft is good in providing you an attack scenario. In that case, everything is shareable. You can share among users, so your report, you can easily create a nice attack scenario. So another bug, this bug again was in SharePoint. Here it's asked me that you can continue to access the document here, and one of the get parameter here is called FNL. This parameter has a valid URL that belongs to SharePoint, but if you change this to a JavaScript URI, it results in an XSS. The last question, or where I leave, I'm interested in your thought process, and I leave it up to you. You can ping me on Twitter. You can message me, and we can also discuss. What if there is a validation check? Or what if the site is making sure the URL only starts from HTTP or HTTPS? Because all these bugs that you saw here, in that case, they allow me to have a JavaScript URI. But if the site is forcing you not to use JavaScript, but the URL should start from HTTP or HTTPS, is there still a way? How you will approach this thing? Feel free to ping me over Twitter, and we can later discuss that. So in case if you guys have any questions, anything, and this is not the end of the story. Like, I found SQLi, I found SSRF, I found complete account takeovers. So I already mentioned earlier that this is just the beginning. Like in the next, in 1 month or two, I have 3 talks planned, and I will share all these findings in different talks. And I will try not to repeat these findings. For example, I here at OWASP, I presented only attack that is related to JavaScript URI. In the next session, I am planning to only attack with the help of a script, how you can attack. Then I will share valid bugs that I reported to in Office 365. And like I continue the story moves on. And at Hack in the Box, Cyber Week next month, I will try to share like how I found a privacy leakage in Cross-tenant Office 365, how I was able to take over any dynamic portal sites. So all these bugs will be gradually shared in the next month or two. So until then, feel free to enjoy it. And before I end this talk, I wanted to show you one or two more bugs, just to see, just for the sake of bugs. For example, in Outlook, I found like more than 20K bugs only in Outlook. For example, Outlook offers a feature called accessible content, where you can let senders know that you prefer accessible content by selecting the tick box. People who send you email will be reminded to make their messages accessible and can get information. So if you turn on these features, what happens next? Like how Outlook responds. If you turn off these features or turn on this feature, you see a username, you see a display name at the top of your email that you're going to write to a recipient, that this guy or this recipient prefers accessible content. And I observed that at that point, the output encoding was missing. And this resulted in a persistent accesses in Outlook. Because anyone who has this feature turned on in your organization can make you vulnerable, because you are the one who is writing an email to the attacker. And imagine the attacker has his display name to an XSS payload. And in your browser, when you start sending attacker an email, the XSS got executed, the JavaScript gets executed. So this is just one bug I found in Outlook, like dozens of bugs also. So, but I will not go further, because I will slowly unveil all these bugs in different venues. I think from now on, it's I was told like 30 to 40 minutes. From now on, from my side, I think I'm done. If you have any question or anything you would like to ask, please feel free to ping me on Twitter, and we can happily discuss this question also, like how you will approach this problem. So Atif, I think I'm done.
Yeah, thanks, Ashar. Thank you very much. It was very valuable information. We have a couple of questions.
Yes.
I will just read out the questions in case. Can you see the questions as well from your end?
In the chat?
Yes, chat, and there is also Q&A section down.
Okay. Someone asked me that why I am only focusing on Microsoft.
Yes.
Yes, it's a nice question. It's not only the youth is asking, many people ask me. First, they pay you a good money, they reward you, they respect you, and they, in my case, I don't know about the experiences of the others, but in my case, they were very cooperative. Like I have like sort of direct contacts with them. And by the end of the day, nothing is free. You're finding bugs where the party is paying you more money. And in my experience, Microsoft is one of the best out there. And I personally also prefer not platforms like a HackerOne or BugCrowd, where like you are sending a report and a middleman is trying to reproduce it, and it purely depends upon that middleman or a triager who is saying, okay, it's a dupe. Like I'm telling you my personal experience in the last 4 years, I think rarely, maybe only once or twice, my bug was duplicated. My bug was never duplicated, because I am directly sending a bug to Microsoft security engineers. There is no middle party involved here. So that's why I personally prefer Microsoft. And I am doing it in the last 4 years. I'm only focusing on Microsoft. I never participate in any other program in that way because of the learning also. Now I learned a lot. Now I know where the bug is. Now I know what features they are going to announce. And how can I also immediately realize if there is a bug in that app of Office 365, it means the same bug or maybe a variety of that bug will definitely be there on that other application. So just because of the time spent, because of the energy spent on Office 365, and it's a lot for me, it's like a win-win situation. Like in the world, no one can live without Office 365. Even when you go to the office, you use Outlook. You make a presentation, you use Microsoft PowerPoint. You use Microsoft Word. So, and we as a Hyundai Motor Group, we are also using Office 365. So for me, it's like saving millions or billions of users. It's also like nice feeling to have. So that's why I only prefer Microsoft.
Okay, thanks. So I guess another user, he posted the answer to your question. Maybe if you can throw some light on this to your question, which is currently displayed. What if there
What
is
is
a
it?
validation check regarding this?
The validation check is like, for example, you enter something and the request goes to the server, and on the server side, in the code, on the server side code, they are doing some sort of validation, like they are making sure that the once you entered, is it a valid URL or not. This is like a validation check. I call it a validation check.
Okay, there. Yeah.
Any other thing, or if anyone has any question, please feel free to write me on Twitter, on DM. I would be happy to answer.
One
Okay.
quick question to you, Asher, from me, Imran
Yeah.
here.
Yes.
So, what do you think the content security policy is playing the role now? Because it does allow you to secure from all of these things. Of course, there are bypasses and the different ways every
I,
browser behaves, you know. But
yeah.
now that everyone is moving to Chrome, right? Now Chromium behind the scenes, right? So the engine, what is called the
No,
web
see,
engine.
I
Yeah.
got your point. I always recommend developers, like when I pen test, I always recommend developers to make use of content security policy. But the problem is the adoption. Like as of now, I rarely figure it out that all the Microsoft properties, they're not using CSP at all. Like
Yeah.
maybe one or two application of Office 365 are using CSP because it's not easy to adopt CSP at scale. Yeah, if you are a new website, if you have like a small page website, like 3, 5, 10 pages, then okay, it's easy. But the amount of energies, the efforts the dev has to put in the CSP is very expensive. Like I deal with the developers on daily basis, and they don't have time. They have business pressure, they have other factors running, they have a lot of work on their plates. Okay, elites like Google, okay, maybe they are using CSP on some of their top properties, but I would not see web is greater than Google. So I would not see that the CSP will be adopted on a scale. It's an unfortunate, but still I am an advocate of CSP. I love people should use CSP. Definitely CSP will stop these simple things, but the question arises, who cares, who is using it? Still we are too early for to have CSP at scale, especially when we are talking about web.
Yep, it all boils down to usability versus security. I agree with you.
Yes,
Thank you.
so yeah, because in even in Outlook, in other Microsoft top properties like Word, Excel, I don't see any CSP over there, because it's not possible for them to change the whole Word, whole Office 365 to a CSP based Office 365. It's a huge amount of manpower required and effort required to do that.
Yep, thank you so much.
And if anyone asks you any question or anything, anyone is interested in having this, and given you guys are the organizers, I will share the slide link once, like I have some other talks planned, and I will add all these slides to like a one main big slide. and then I will share the link with you guys.
Okay, great. There is one other guy, I guess Mr. Sayed, you have something to ask?
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum, Ashraf.
Asher, yeah.
Yeah, it was very nice. You gave us a very good insight on the Office 365 and its related bugs. Just wanted to check with you. I understand your affinity with Microsoft, but you also mentioned that Microsoft pays you well. I believe Google also pays you well, and Google also, they have this platform where they ask people to come and do regular vulnerability assessments on their platform and come up with their vulnerabilities. So I believe it's part and parcel of our business and how you look at it from each other's perspective. So I believe both Microsoft and Google, they pay you well when you do these tests.
Yes. I'm not saying that others are not paying well. It also comes down to my personal choice. For example, I don't know that maybe you have an idea that like 5 or 6 years ago, I was among like top 20, 25 Google participant also, like a bug hunter. I enjoyed the position over there also. And Google has my name listed also in their Hall of Fame. But then I switched to Office 365 because the main reason I found in Office 365, it has so many features, like infinite number of features. So once you dig deep inside the application and the application is offering you thousands of features, then the chances of having a bug is great. So I don't want you to spend time on some application where after 2 hours I will find nothing. I wanted to spend 2 hours. By the end of 2 hours, I wanted to have 3 to 4 bugs. So because I have limited time, 9 to 5 job with family and all this stuff. So because I spent too much time on Office 365, I learned a lot. So that's why I am focusing only my energies over there. But it does not mean that the others are bad. Others are also good. Facebook is also good. They pay also well. Google also pays well. But if I start finding bugs over there, it means that I have to start from scratch. I have to understand their application, how they work, what are the features, because I already spent that type of learning in Office 365. So that's why I only focusing over there.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Okay, I guess we had you answered all.
I have, I'm sorry, Mr. Atif, I have one comment. Addition actually comment to what Archer said about, why he chose this specific platform, the 360. I think more to his word, specialization is good. You can save your time. You can. So, like for myself, I always, do the open source, do the, finding the bugs in SharePoint and all this. So I see it myself. It's not waste of time, but it needs more performance. It needs more research. It needs more time to spend it. But if you specialize in some software and you master it, I think it's good.
Yeah, I agree with you. So that's why, because in that way I can save a lot of time, because I know now
Exactly.
how these things work. I already spent too much time in learning, so I don't want it to waste that time. Now I wanted to utilize the time.
Exactly.
Now I wanted to utilize the time that I spend in learning about Office 365. And so it helps me,
Exactly.
like for example, if I switch to another target, I need to start from scratch, because
Exactly.
in my personal viewpoint of view, or in my nature, I don't look at the application like at an abstract layer. I always try to explore different features, how it looks from inside. So that's why I wanted to save my time, and I am spending all my energies in Office 365. I'm saying that I'm like not a $1 million hacker, but still, like you can say 500,000, we can argue on that.
Good.
Wow,
Good. Actually, yeah, it's actually great. And I'm sorry, Mr. Atif, I just wanna here maybe less than 1 minute about the mitigation. Okay, so far you're good with finding bugs in, or let's say the vulnerability. So any idea about how the mitigation is going to happen and how much time will cost?
Yes, yes, yes. As Imran already asked about the CSP, like CSP is a sort of good mitigation or like a good approach for a basic cross-site scripting protection. But still, there are many other things out there. Like you simply, uh, I will try to add. In fact, in my training, where I offer like a 2-day training, in my training I offer everything, like how to find it, how to mitigate it, how to find it, and how to make all these setups ready for you all the time, so that you can see as soon as the feature launch, you can immediately check the feature, because it's always like a win-win, like the first one wins. Because imagine if the situation, if there is a feature and has been tested by thousands of researchers, it there is a less chance that it has a bug. But if you are the first one who is testing the feature, there is a great chance that there is a bug over there.
Exactly. Yes. Thank you anyway. So Atif, go ahead, please.
Okay, thanks everyone, and thanks Ashar for your valuable time and valuable information. So we will wait for your slides, and so that we can share it with those guys who couldn't attend it.
Yes, sure. Atif, everything will be public, all the slides, because I don't want it to like I don't want it to make duplicate slides. I wanted to make one slide having different payload, different bugs, and then once everything will be completed, then I will share it.
Sure, sure, no worries. Yeah, we will wait for
Good.
it.
Good idea.
Great.
So
Okay.
thank you guys. Thanks for having me,
No
and
problem.
it would be pleasure once I will be over there, and we can have a in person. We can arrange a talk over there then.
Sure, sure.
Sure, sure. It's our pleasure.
Okay,
Thanks
great.
so much, actually, and thank you for Mr. Omran as well.
Yeah, we would like to thank Mr. Imran for sponsoring our event.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Imran.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for giving the opportunity.
As well, yeah, sure, as well as the attendant.